everyone, welcome to the Awaken Your Truth Conversations. My name is Denise Simone from denisesimone.com. I am speaking with Alexandra Lowry, and I'm really excited to have her here. Alexandra is a certified integrative life coach, and she is also an infinite possibilities trainer. And she assists her own clients in uncovering their own unique heart wisdom through her personal one-on-one coaching sessions, through seminars, and through empowerment workshops.
Thank you for having me today.
Yeah, so exciting.
Excited to be here.
I really want to start with taking you back to that point when you came to this realization that the way things were going for you didn't seem to be working anymore. Tell us more about that. What were you experiencing and what were you feeling?
As I was approaching midlife, I was starting to wake up to the fact that nothing seemed to be working in my life. I didn't feel connected to anything. I just had this nagging sense that things were off balance, that I was kind of walking through water, if you will, not really connected to my life, just going through the motions. So there was also this nagging sense, this longing for something more. So on one hand, I was feeling this incredible inertia, kind of this stuckness. There was also a combination of there's got to be more to life. I just knew there was more. I just didn't have the tools.
So what was the first step you took to understanding what was really happening for you?
Well, I had a series of events that happened in my life, as usually what happens to many of us who reach a point where things need to change, or we recognize, we wake up. I had been divorced for a long time. I was a single mother, and I'd been working in various different jobs, going along onto the external world, looking like everything was great. And it was externally, but internally, I was disconnected from myself. My job was downsized. The company that I was working at was sold. The love relationship I was in was unhealthy and unproductive. And I was taking care of my elderly mother, and it was when she tried to commit suicide that I finally had what I thought was a breakdown, and I look at it now that it truly was a breakthrough, because I gave up needing to be in the know. I knew that I didn't know what I was doing. I knew that what I was doing wasn't working, so I surrendered to that fact that I needed help, and that I didn't have all the answers. So, at the time, it seemed like a breakdown, a midlife breakdown. I look now, well, I should say very shortly thereafter, I looked at it that it was such a gift. It was a breakthrough for me to truly wake up to my life and seek guidance. And so I did. I sought the advice of a counselor and a spiritual advisor. And she, out of the blue, said, are you familiar with Debbie Ford? And I had heard of Debbie. Got a self-help kind of CD book program, and it was as if the heavens opened up for me. It's as if she was speaking my truth, that there were answers, that I wasn't alone. It really gave me the start to continue the internal introspection that I had lost throughout the years.
I love what you say, that your breakdown was really a breakthrough, because oftentimes we have all of these things being thrown at us, and we tend to feel like we're a victim in all of it. And what's really happening, the universe is really just trying to wake us up to taking full responsibility for who we are, being in the world. And I just find that so amazing, because when we're little, I think we have this internal knowing that I don't want to use the word control, because we're not in control of everything, but we have that sense of connectedness to ourselves. So how is it, from your own personal experience, how is it that you lost that connection.
Yeah, you're speaking my truth, the knowing versus the not knowing, and that was part of it too, taking responsibility finally and
Mm-hmm.
being willing to sit and hang out in the not knowing. And for me, I think it was a lifelong journey of losing myself,
Mm-hmm.
honestly. I had a very repressed childhood. There was a lot of messages that you needed to be perfect, and I never felt good enough. So I really, I say that I became a perfect people pleaser. I was a
Mm-hmm.
professional people pleaser. And, I now know that that was a brilliant coping mechanism, brilliant coping skill that I learned very, very young to mold and adapt myself to other people's image. And I was highly intuitive. I was very good at, reading energy because it was a survival skill. And so I wore these many masks, and over time I I lost my true authentic self. And for me it was a lot of denial. Denial was key for me. I mastered that for many, many years. And that was, again, also from life trauma in childhood. I had to present this image that I was a good girl, that I was perfect, that I was talented, that I was all knowing. And, of course, I was anything but. And through the law of attraction, through my life experience, I attracted situations that just perpetuated that place of dis-ease. And so I made poor choices, although I don't regret them because they brought me to where I am today. I have 4 amazing sons, and I'm really proud of that. I feel like that was where I was my most authentic self, was in motherhood.
Mm.
But aside from that, as we know, that too is a label that you can
Mm-hmm.
hang out with,
Mm-hmm.
out in, and hide in,
Yes.
which is not a bad thing necessarily. But there was so much more to me, and
Mm-hmm.
I knew it, but I was afraid of it. I was
Yes.
afraid of, what that might be,
Right.
good, bad, or otherwise.
Yeah. And I want to talk more about the law of attraction. This idea that we attract what we want as opposed to we attract who we are being.
Mm-hmm.
So, can you talk more about that so listeners can have a better understanding of how the law of attraction really works when it comes to who we are, how we're showing up in the world and who we're being,
Yeah.
as opposed to what our ego mind would like to have?
Yeah, and I think, when I trained under Mike Dooley, one of the reasons he brought out his work was that he felt that there was not enough information for folks out there to really apply this into their own lives. The idea was, you could just want something in your mind, think about it, and you would attract that into your life. But it's so much more.
That would be only.
If you have underlying, limiting beliefs that you are undeserving, or if you have a poverty mindset, a lack mindset, that's going to interfere energetically with attracting abundance into your life. Another thing that we get caught up in as humans, human beings, is that we forget, our divine selves, and we don't connect to the feelings, and it's really it's all energy. We block our own receiving. We block it by putting boundaries around how things should come to us. The timeline,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to just put the intention out there, believe it in your heart, connect to the feelings, because the feelings is what, and the emotions are going to bring the energy about, feelings of gratitude, feelings of abundance, and then releasing it to allow the universe to deliver it to us in the time that the universe decides. And that sounds very woo-woo, and for a lot of people who are logic, oriented, but there's actually there's actually scientific proof about how our brains are wired and why it is that the higher level emotions such as gratitude and love, will help attract more of that into our lives because it
Yes.
opens up the pathways to creativity and other things. And that's a whole nother workshop. But people get stuck. They feel like they can, I'm thinking about this. I'm thinking about, I want to, fit into that swimsuit by spring, but I haven't lost an inch. And because internally they're thinking when they look at themselves in the mirror that, I look terrible.
Right.
Or so that's really the important. It's internally, what are you feeling?
Yes.
That's going to attract the abundance into your life.
Talk about how forgiveness, I'm sure as a Debbie Ford coach, you have worked a lot around forgiveness. So tell me more about how forgiveness releases the blocks to becoming more aligned vibrationally. How does the forgiveness release the lower vibrations and invite in the higher vibrations?
Boy. And I tell my clients it's a practice. Forgiveness is a practice, just like gratitude. It doesn't always come gracefully or easily.
Mm-hmm.
Many of us forgive in our heads, but we don't, it hasn't gone down into that heart. That 18-inch journey is really, can be the hardest journey we take. And there can be layers to it. So if you want to start releasing some of that pain of the past, that energy stamp from the past, then you have to start doing forgiveness work because it is heavy. Everything that comes along with, with the needing to, whether it's regret, remorse, shame. I mean, a lot of it is forgiveness for yourself. That's huge.
Mm-hmm.
If you, I remember years and years ago hearing, well, if you don't love yourself, you can't love others, very bold statements. If you don't forgive, yourself, you can't really forgive others, And I was like, oh, that's poppycock. How's that possible? I just adore my kids and I knew I wasn't really loving to myself. Well, I think it's more or less that it keeps the wholeness of you in reserve.
Yes. Oh, that's really good.
I mean, because I couldn't accept that I wasn't loving if I didn't love myself, because sometimes I did love myself, and so it's so important, forgiveness, and to do it ongoing. It's not always something that you just, okay, I'm done, hey, good, done,
But
signed, sealed, delivered.
Isn't it really important to know that it's loving the parts of you that don't love yourself? Right? It's loving all of yourself.
It's allowing yourself to be as human as everyone else.
Right.
And that's the beautiful thing of the shadow work is when you can embrace all of who you are, the things that the things that you don't like about yourself, when you can understand that on a deeper level,
yes,
it takes the charge out of it.
Yes.
And you don't have to avoid it anymore. In fact, you can actually use it as an empowerment tool. You can actually befriend your shadows and bring humor to it and affection. I call it, and people say, oh, I'm not going to laugh at myself. I'm like, I do, but I say bring affection to our old habit responses, because they're going to kick up, every now and then, but bring awareness to it. Bring awareness and affection. Yeah. And that's self-forgiveness to me.
Yes.
It's the allowing yourself to be just as human as everybody else.
I love that. I think that's where the gold is, right there.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm still doing it. Years later, I think that, we can continue to examine that all the time in our lives. Where do I need to be more forgiving, less judgmental, less critical? Where can I stop the comparisons? And that all goes along with self-forgiveness and forgiveness of others.
Because then you're free. then
Yeah,
you're
it's true freedom. It absolutely is. Yeah,
so
I mean the whole jealousy, envy, comparison, whatever that those emotions, very human emotions, they really are just pointing an arrow to a limiting belief.
yes, I love that.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
that's really it's so I tell folks, I'm like, okay, when you're feeling those lower vibration emotions, those difficult emotions, the ones that you want to just, stuff down or step aside, look at them as little flag posts, little signals to say, oh, be curious about it. What
Yeah,
is that all about?
yeah,
It's not always easy in the moment, but if you just keep training yourself, you can say, that's it. If I find myself getting kicked up in a lower, energy thought or emotion and negative thoughts, and I'll go, now, isn't that, I'll
yeah.
bring some curiosity to it.
And wouldn't you say
Um,
that's being well, I use the term observer. We're just
yeah,
constantly in observation with ourself. We have when we can cultivate that relationship with ourself, where we can not be in it, but be observant of us,
yeah.
and not take it so personally.
It was told to me a long time ago, and I pay it forward. I
Mm-hmm.
pass it on all the time when I tell folks, you you are not your thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
You are the observer behind your thoughts.
Perfect.
And something happens. Um, there's a shift that occurs. There's a relief that comes with that. Especially
It did for
folks who are,
me.
yeah, folks who are plagued with that, monkey mind,
Yeah,
and just to say, okay, you're not that.
yeah,
You're so much more than that.
yeah. I think it just opens up a doorway for us to perceive ourselves differently. And that's when we can ask more empowering questions about ourselves. Like, well, then if I'm not that, then who am I? Right?
Well, and what's interesting is I find it can a lot of times be a doorway to a conversation or an exploration about divinity. It can be one of the first times a person actually looks at themselves as a divine creature.
Yeah.
Someone who may have been just merely living on the physical plane, reactionary to the world, plagued by their thoughts, when they suddenly have this realization that, who is observing, well, who's behind the thoughts?
Hmm.
And it's like a trick question almost. And they go, whoa. So it can be a beautiful introduction to that idea that you are so much more
Yeah.
than just what you perceive on this earthly plane.
Oh, yes. Absolutely. So, talk to us now about your life today. Tell
Mm.
us how your transformational experience has led you to using your struggles in a empowering way as opposed to your struggles taking over you.
Mm. Well, my life has changed dramatically, and it's a result. It's a result of the challenges that I went through. I bless my past. I bless those challenges. It has made me who I am today. It directed me into this work. Once I was changed forever. I learned all those things you talked about, taking responsibility for my life, really, really believing it and seeing it. And as difficult as that was, on the flip side, I knew immediately that meant I got to choose going forward, that I actually was creating my life going forward. That was a big awareness for me. I learned that, the forgiveness piece. I understood why my life was the way it was, what I was doing to shut myself down, what I was doing to sabotage, all my underlying commitments, all my false beliefs about my potential. Life just became more poignant and more colorful, and I became more aware, and I, number one, reconnected to my heart wisdom. That was, of anything that I've experienced in my life, reconnecting to my intuition and trusting it and reconnecting to my heart wisdom opened up a whole new world for me. And I said, I have to bring this truth to other people. I know other people are struggling, are suffering with this. There's so much healing that comes from this work. It's not brain surgery. Mm-hmm. It's not, it's very relatable. It's relatable to anybody, anywhere. This program of breakthrough shadow coaching. And I said, that's it. I negotiated an exit strategy with my company, and I took that leap of faith. And
can you just talk about taking a leap of faith? I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah,
I think that's a really important point, that when you're on this path of living from the inside out, you're living in alignment with your heart. You have to start living in uncertainty, right? In this place of, whereas opposed to when you're living from the outside in, you make choices based on what feels like you're in control of everything. And taking a leap of faith is very much aligned with living in your truth, in your purpose, because you don't know what's on the other side of the door, but that's how you know oftentimes you're moving in the right direction. Would you say that's true?
Yes, I think it's getting out of the ego mind, the limitations of the ego mind, and really connecting to your heart wisdom. What's knocking on the door? And I had been I'd had a lot of knocking on the door for a long time. Wake up, wake up, wake up. And as I said, it was a culmination of a lot of things coming to my midlife and saying, is this all there is to life? What am I going to do after this? I know there's more. I know there's more to me. There's more I want to do. I want to give back. And really required that I reconnect to not only my divine confidence as opposed to counterfeit confidence, which is the confidence we gain from the external world. Oh, you're great, you're awesome, you can do. I had to have this knowing that I could do this. Sometimes I had to push through it because I had to try. Or I felt there was almost this feeling that if I don't do this now, I will shrivel up and die internally.
That's how you know.
It was do or die. It was like, this is it. I've got to do it.
Yeah.
And I just want to share something with you that a colleague of mine, we're in this kind of mastermind spiritual group, and we've been doing a lot of really interesting book conversations, and she came up and we talked about trust. And this is how I see it. There's two ways to trust, okay? The external ego trust says, I hope I make the right decision. Mm-hmm. That's what a lot of us do. Me too. I've been definitely
Me too.
Done that too, right? I hope I make the right decision. Your heart space, your divine trust says, I know that I can handle the outcome of any decision I make. So one comes from the head, one comes from the heart. And so mine had to come from the heart. I knew I was a survivor. I've been through a lot of challenges and tragedies like most of us have. I've made it through. And actually, to the outside world, thriving. It appeared to be thriving in the outside world. So I knew I could handle material loss. I knew I could handle loss in the external world. And so it was that internal trust, that divine trust.
Yeah, it's so important to have that trust. I think the heart, trusting of the heart also says that there is no wrong decision, that every decision you're going to learn from it anyway. That's also how you know you're not coming from ego, because ego says, I have to get this right.
Right. Yes. Every person, every experience has come here to teach us.
Yes, absolutely.
And I truly believe that. I look back now and I've, at this stage I am in my life right now, I can literally look back, and I don't spend a lot of time there, but I can connect the dots. I can see the divine path.
Yes.
I mean, it's quite it's magnificent, really. You know, as difficult as
Magical. It's
sometimes
magical.
were, it
Yeah.
is magical. Yeah, yeah, definitely.
But it takes us perceiving it that way. We have to have that willingness to perceive it that way.
Yes.
And yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you for being so vulnerable, and so important to be able to share, because that's how we all learn from each other.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's my pleasure. My pleasure. And if I hope it helps someone else to know they're not alone.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So if you'd like to know more about Alexandra, you can find her on her Facebook page at Wisdom Alliance and via wisdomalliance.com.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
And we'll have to
Okay.
most definitely stay in touch.
I would love that. I would
Okay.
love that.
All
Thank
right.
you, Denise.
Have a beautiful day. Thank you.
And you as well.